So our first question was, what was your, how did you get into Buddhism? What was your intro into it?
Sure. I was always interested in how the mind works and how happiness works. Should I look at you, by the way?
Whatever.
So I met our teacher, Lama Ole Nidal, who's the man pictured on the wall here, at a lecture at the University of Wisconsin, where I was studying in college, my freshman year of college. Was really blown away and saw basically an example of someone who was just completely happy all the time, and just being near him, you felt very happy. And I thought a lot of the ideas he was talking about made sense, and I thought the aspect, the critical thinking, was very interesting. Meaning, there's no concept of faith in Buddhism. There's no idea about believing something. So this really appealed to me as really methods to become happy. And this meditation I thought was really interesting, and that led me to check out a lot of different traditions in a lot of different places, and decide that this fit for me really well.
One of the main beliefs throughout Buddhism, regardless of sect, is the general belief in reincarnation, or the concept of rebirth after death. It does not necessarily mean that you are reborn as the same entity.
Do you believe in reincarnation, and if so, how much do you believe it's affected by your present life and how you're living?
I don't like the word belief so much, but I think that reincarnation makes sense to me. It's something that seems logical. I was just reading this really interesting research at the University of Virginia where they've studied these over 2,000 cases. You should Google it. It's fascinating, of kids that report very detailed descriptions of past lives. And it's fascinating because they studied it and they found out that there's this commonality that for whatever reason it tends to mostly be boys, and they had violent deaths in the previous life. It's very interesting. Thousands of kids, and they documented this. So anyway, logically, reincarnation makes sense to me in terms of how it affects my daily life. I don't know if it affects it so much. It's not essential. I mean, if someone comes in and they say, "Oh, I want to be Buddhist, but I'm not sure about this reincarnation thing," we say, "Don't worry about it."
There are three major beliefs across Buddhism, which are called the three universal truths. They are nothing is lost in the universe, everything changes, and the law of cause and effect, meaning one thing affects another, or everything affects another. In addition to the three universal truths, most sects of Buddhism believe in the Four Noble Truths, which are dukkha, which states that suffering exists and is universally experienced by every living creature; the samudaya, which states that our greed is the cause of our suffering; nirodha, which states that there is an end to suffering; and magga, which states that the end can be obtained through the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is exactly as it sounds: 8 steps towards ending suffering. The first step, samadhi, is to view things as they are, without any delusions or distortions. The second step, samasankappa, is to act from love, compassion, or empathy. The third step is samavaka, which is to practice kind and non-harmful communication, which again goes with acting from love, compassion, and empathy. The fourth step, samakamanta, is to practice selfless actions in which reflects the moment you want to live in, so to live in the moment, basically. The fifth step is sama-ajiva, which is to avoid the causes of suffering to other people, which makes sense since the Eightfold Path is to end suffering. The sixth step is samavayama, which is to prevent an evil state of mind. The seventh step is samasati, which is to become intensely aware of all of the states of mind, body, and sensation, which kind of goes with to live in the moment. The eighth and final step is samadhi, which is meditation or concentration to one pointed mind, which goes along with many of the other steps. Although Buddhism has many different sects and branches coming from it, there are 5 rules that span across Buddhism. The first one is do no harm to others, as Buddhism tries to end suffering for all. The rest of the rules go along with that but are more specific. For instance, the second rule is do not steal, the third is do not lie, and the fourth is do not do adultery, sexual harassment, or exploit relations. The fifth is do not intoxicate, which goes towards not harming oneself and keeping one focused. Buddhist monks, which are mainly in the Theravada sect of Buddhism, have to follow additional rules, and they have to make sure they do not live in a family. Some of these rules are: they do not take timed meals, they avoid dancing, singing, listening to music, and watching grotesque mime, they avoid the use of garland, perfume, and personal adornment, they avoid the use of high seats, and instead go with cushions that stay on the floor, and they do not accept gold or silver. The Theravada monks followed 227 precepts, which would obviously take too long to go into all of them. Finally, one of the other large beliefs practiced across all of Buddhism is the idea of karma, which explains the actions of one's past, how it will affect us in the past, present, and future. It also explains how the person will be reborn and their status in the next life. The purpose of karma is to take control of our actions and take responsibility. How often would you say that you come across Buddhism in your daily life, like outside of here and in your group?
Sure, interesting question. I mean, on an outer level, you could say like Buddhism's has a good brand, you know? I mean, you go into a restaurant and you see a Buddha. I mean, you go work at Google and they have meditation classes. I mean, it's like totally normal. It actually was not the case 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, you know? So things have really changed on that front. So in terms of to your question, when you run into Buddhism out there, you see a lot of references to it. But I would answer it a little differently on a personal level to say, like, if our goal is to practice in every single moment. So we don't just practice Buddhism. Hello. Yeah, our goal is actually to practice Buddhism in every single moment. This means that we don't want to just, we feel really special and meditate, you know, I'm so nice and relaxed now, and then I go off into the world and can't handle what's going on, or have an emotional trip about something, or whatever. I mean, every single moment, because we're experiencing it in our mind, provides us with the ability to look at that we're experiencing. We can see how we are reacting to a situation, and it gives us the opportunity that if we experience something we like, fantastic, we enjoy it, and immediately the way you can practice in that moment, this is like practical advice regardless of whether anyone wants to be Buddhist or not, is that when you experience something good, then you immediately wish others the same level of happiness and the same joy. This really has an impact on your mind and how you see the world. And when you experience something negative, then you can be glad that that experience is leaving you. It's not, so from a Buddhist perspective, things that we experience that are negative are karmas that are expiring. And this means that actually we can be glad. And we can be glad that if we go through some difficulty, that we'll be able to benefit others in the future who have that same difficulty themselves. So from this perspective, if we experience something good, great, we wish others the same joy. If we experience something difficult, we see what we can learn from it, and we're glad that that experience is leading us.
In addition to there being different beliefs in each of the different sects of Buddhism, there are also different religious practices. There are three main forms of Buddhism. The first is Theravada, which is the most ancient form of Buddhism, and is dominant in Southeast Asia, for instance Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. It centers around the Pali scriptures, which are the transcriptions of the original Buddha's teachings. The Theravada Buddhists believe that by studying these ancient texts, meditating, and following the Eightfold Path, they will also achieve enlightenment. There is a strong emphasis on becoming a monk and heeding the advice of the wise. One of the largest practices in the Theravada community are the fortnightly Uposatha days, in which all of the monks of a monastery gather in a sanctuary, excluding novices, for a mutual confession of their offenses and a recitation of the 227-rule monastic code called the Patmokkha. The next form of Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism, which developed out of the Theravada tradition. There are a number of individual forms of Buddhism that came out of Mahayana, including Zen Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, and Tantric Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism focuses on the idea of compassion and Tut Bodhisattvas, which are beings that work out of compassion to liberate other beings from their suffering. Mahayana Buddhism is strongest in Tibet, China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and Mongolia. Zen Buddhism is said to have originated in China with the teachings of the monk Bodhidharma. Zen Buddhism treats zazen meditation and daily practice as essential for attaining enlightenment. It is one of the more popular forms of Buddhism in the Western world. Tibetan Buddhism includes prostrations, making offerings to statues of Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, attending public teachings and ceremonies. Tibetan Buddhism also has temple ceremonies, which are often noisy, visually striking, with brass instruments, cymbals, and gongs, and musical and impressive chanting. It takes place in strikingly designed temples and monasteries. The senior Tibetan Buddhists are called yogis and perform elaborate visualizations and demanding meditations. These senior Tibetan Buddhists are called yogis and can achieve much greater control over their body than other human beings through their yoga and meditation, and are able to control their body temperature, heart rate, and other normally automatic functions. The last of the three ancient forms is Vajrayana, and it provides a quicker path to enlightenment than the other two. Vajrayana Buddhists believe that there is a mutual effect between the physical being of a person and the spiritual being of a person. Vajrayana Buddhists encourage rituals, chanting, and tantra techniques. Vajrayana Buddhism has more similarities to Hinduism than many of the other sects. The Vajrayana rituals include worshipping deities, making hand gestures called mudra, chanting mantra, and drawing mandalas. Mantras are sacred words that are chanted during the rituals, and mandalas are intricate figures drawn on paper, wood, and planks, the floor, metal plates, or cloths representing different deities. In addition to these other rituals, Vajrayana Buddhism has an initiation ritual. It is called empowerment, or in Sanskrit, abhiseka. After this abhiseka, the person trying to become a Vajrayana Buddhist is introduced to the mandala of the deity, and when this person develops skills in mandala drawing, he or she is given ritual instructions by their master. All across Buddhism, meditation is a widely performed practice, as it keeps one's mind sharp and focused, which is a main part of Buddhist philosophy. There are four main types of meditation: concentrative, generative, reflective, and receptive. Concentrative meditation focuses on one object, for instance a candle, a sound, or a person's breathing, and then tries to clear the mind of all but that one object. It improves focus and relaxes the body. Generative meditation is emotionally driven, which means to connect a person to the rest of the people on earth, as well as cultivating compassion for the rest of the people on earth. A well-known form of this meditation is metta, which consists of a person projecting a golden light onto various different people. They begin with themselves, then their friends and family, then the people that they don't really like, then finally towards someone that they really hate. This helps to build a loving attitude towards every aspect of their life. Receptive meditation builds an appreciation for living in the moment. Some examples come from Japan or Tibet, in which a person sits quietly in a chair with their eyes open, simply observing their surroundings and appreciating them without thinking of anything else. The last form, reflective meditation, builds interconnectedness and faith. It usually consists of thinking of one theme, or a mantra, when sitting down to meditate. There are a few other Buddhist rituals that happen across every sect of Buddhism. One of the most popular is going for refuge. The person goes for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, who are the spiritual community and mostly made up of monks. It is how a person becomes a Buddhist. While going for refuge, the Buddhists chant the three refuges, committing themselves to living out these ideals. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are the three refuges. The Buddha is seen as a refuge because his example and teaching represents practical and reliable responses to our own suffering in the face of life. The Dharma is considered a refuge as it is all of the Buddha's teaching. The Sangha are other people who live to communicate the Buddha's teachings, so they are also considered a refuge. Another ritual is dana, which means giving. It is one of the essential preliminary steps of Buddhist practice. It is thought to lead to liberation from samsara, which is the cycle of repeated existence, or rebirth.
So, from the research that we've done, the way I understand it is there are some sections of Buddhism that pray and others that don't believe that that every moment is kind of prayer. I was wondering if you pray like as outside of just like living in every moment.
Yeah, so the terminology gets tricky because ultimately you're taking Buddhist concepts that were written in Sanskrit or Pali or Tibetan and then now translated into English into a totally different language with different ideas and understanding, right? So if you think about how this stuff originally got translated, someone from the West who had a Christian background came to the East, saw what was going on and called that prayer. So ultimately it's just a word. So from my perspective, absolutely I don't pray. Partly that's because to me that doesn't fit with what my understanding of Buddhism is, but it's just a word. People mean different things when they say it. But for example, we have these forms in Buddhism, right? So you have different Buddha forms, you have these beautiful paintings. These are forms of energy and light, and they represent qualities of the mind. So this is not a God that you pray to. It's a quality of the mind that you want to realize yourself. Fearlessness, joy, compassion, overcoming all obstacles. So for example, when you see that this powerful red lady wears these skulls on her head, each one of those skulls symbolizes a different disturbing emotion. Jealousy, anger, pride, attachment. And it shows that she's conquered those disturbances. So there's a lot of symbolism, and there's a lot there that things can get lost in translation. But the point of prayer that, it's not just something outside. Actually, from a Buddhist perspective, everything is mind.
Just as beliefs and religious practices differ from sect to sect of Buddhism, so do the holidays. One of the most prominent holidays is the Buddhist New Year, which is celebrated by two of the major sects of Buddhism. The Theravadan Buddhists celebrate their Buddhist New Year for 3 days starting on the first full moon day in April. In Mahayana Buddhism countries, the New Year usually starts on the first full moon day in January and goes for 3 days. Another Buddhism holiday is Vesak, which is also known as Buddha Day. This is extremely important to Theravada Buddhism, but is also important to other sects. Vesak is the birthday of the Buddha. On the first full moon day in May, Buddhists all over the world celebrate the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha in a single day. A holiday only celebrated by the Buddhists in Thailand, but one of the most beautiful, is the Festival of the Floating Bowls, or Loi Krathong. At the end of the Kathan festival season, when the rivers and canals are full of water, the Loi Krathong festival takes place on the full moon night of the 12th lunar month. People bring bowls made of leaves, which contain flowers, candles, and incense sticks, and float them in the water. As they go, all bad luck is supposed to disappear. The traditional practice of Loi Krathong was originally meant to pay homage to the holy footprint of the Buddha, which was left on the beach of the Narmada River in India. Modern-day Loi Krathong also sees floating lanterns in the sky. Another interesting holiday, Ancestor Day or Ulambana, is only celebrated by the Mahayana countries of Buddhism. It is believed that the gates of hell are opened on the first day of the 8th lunar month, and ghosts may visit the world for 15 days. Food offerings are made during this time to relieve the sufferings of the ghosts. On the 15th day, Ulambana, or Ancestor Day, people visit cemeteries to make offerings to the departed ancestors. Many Theravada Buddhists from Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand also observe this festival.
We were wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of your favorite Buddhist festivals or holidays or important days.
So Buddhism is actually unusual because the cultural things like holidays and stuff, they're not really part of Buddhism. It's interesting. So the thing is, everybody needs a holiday because it's important socially, but it's actually not part of the teachings. So you cannot find any teaching where Buddha says, "No, you shall celebrate Buddha Day," or you know what I mean? So there's a lot of, if you look at Tibet, you see lots of cultural things that happen as different big days and festivals. But if you go and you look at Thailand, you find something completely different. Japan or whatever, and they don't really have to do with teaching about the mind and the teaching about how to reach the different states of mind, which is what Buddhism is, which is the subject of Buddhism. Except for maybe one thing. So there's a kind of party that was taught that the yogis would have. So you have 3 different types of practitioners, You have the ones who are the monks, which everybody thinks about, right? So they don't allow themselves to have as much fun, and then they have a very controlled situation, and then they can be in peace. Then you have lay people who are the people who pay for everything, have normal lives and families and so on. And then you have the yogis, and the yogis were the ones who would go out into the caves and they would meditate alone for 10 years or something like that, and do amazing things with their minds. These were the wild ones. And these yogis, they would get together and they would have what's called a Ganachakra, which is like a big party, basically. But it didn't fit with a certain date. It was actually kind of a sharing of joy. Yeah, so I would say that that's the closest I could come to thinking of a Buddhist event. It sounds nice, yeah. Wild yogi party in the jungles.
So we were researching Buddhist art and we came up with the Wheel of Life. We were wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and the significance of it.
Perfect timing, Ryan.
We're actually doing that tomorrow.
Really?
That's the morning.
Cool.
Really?
Yeah, cause and effect.
Cool.
Yeah.
So ask him about real life.
What is the Wheel of Life?
Kind of.
So, it's a very recent thing in history that everybody can read and write. And so before that, if you wanted to educate the people in the town, you had to make a picture that everyone could understand. So the Wheel of Life is a picture that they used to paint on the outside of the temples where the monks would meditate. Yeah? And the idea was that people would look at it and they would understand something important about Buddha's teachings. And the main message of it is actually that there are different states of mind, and these different states of mind are like a human experience, the animal experience, and different types of good and bad dreams. And these sort of good and bad dreams are described as God realms and hell realms in the illustration, right? And the main point of Buddhism is that no matter what you're in, if you think that you're the king, or if you're an animal, or if you're suffering or you're happy, that you have ups and downs. And that actually your situation will change because everyone is born and everybody dies. So the main message of Buddhism is to look for something that's lasting, that stays there no matter about everything that comes and goes. And then this around the Wheel of Life are these what are called the 12 links of interdependent origination, right? And you have these 12 links, you have the 6 realms, the human, animal, the god, the hell, and so on. And in the very center you have 3 things. You have the snake, the pig, and the rooster, is what we call it, yeah. And these 3 represent the thing that makes everybody's problems happen in the center. So it's like the hub of a wheel. The hub is where everything goes around. It's the key point. And the pig represents ignorance. The snake represents anger, and the rooster represents desire. So the idea is that because we don't know what's going on all the way, we're stuck on what's happening in front of our faces. And then we either don't understand it, we like it, or we don't like it. So when something happens that we don't like, we push it away, right? If something that happens that we like, we try to keep it. But because we're short-sighted, we're just reacting to our feelings of I like it, I don't like it. And then all the time we're building up we're building up a lot of side effects that we didn't expect. And then when the things come back and they bite us, then we say, I don't like it, it's not my problem. And we push it away. And then it comes back again. So this is this wheel, right? It means that because of these 3 things in the center, beings go through all kinds of birth and death in the 6 realms. Yeah. And then for a detailed explanation of how this happens is these 12 are on the room.
Do you feel that Buddhism helps deal with any social issues nowadays, like affect the country?
Yeah. So from the Buddhist view, every sort of social problem starts as an individual problem, because people act the way that they feel. So if people have problems with how they feel, then they're going to act in ways that are confused because they're reacting and they're not clear. So if you have a lot of, and you can have actually social systems that are based on jealousy. Like communism is basically based on jealousy. Capitalism is working more with greed. And you have you can definitely see some religious movements right now that are very strongly based in anger. So these things, you can see them at a society level, but if something is blowing up at a society level, you have to deal with it as a political problem, right? And then it's not a Buddhist thing; it's a political issue. If a whole bunch of people are behaving badly, then you have to create some kind of to stop them, or you have to create a division or protect somehow, at a country level. But then in terms of the sources for the different actions of people, well, then Buddhism can explain on an individual level how we misunderstand what's going on, and how we allow these emotions to work on us, and then we can do different types of things that weren't the right, weren't the smart thing to do. You know what I mean? So we're not going to get world peace through an individual meditating, but that individual gets free, right? And then everybody has their freedom to hopefully have the chance to work with that and let themselves get over their own issues. That's sort of
How do you benefit emotionally and physically from being Buddhist?
So the thing that Buddhists are aiming for is that they get to enjoy their feelings and thoughts and not be controlled by their feelings and thoughts. So the difference is freedom. Yeah.
Have you ever left the country to go on kind of a spiritual retreat, since we know that Buddhism has strong roots in Tibet and India and other Asian countries?
Yes, we traveled quite a bit. Actually, just came back from Guatemala, so not India, but we did a meditation course there with our teacher, Lama. He travels the world 2 times every year. He's been doing that for 45 years. So we actually go to courses in different places. So we'll be going to London, Russia, Colombia, and Mexico actually.
What do you think is the most important aspect of Buddhism to you? Like meditation or other rituals, or just kind of the whole philosophy of it?
It's a great question, and it's a challenging one because Buddhism is so vast. You know, the historical Buddha taught 84,000 teachings. He taught for over 40 years, so it's an enormous body of work. And there's a lot there. So I'd say, rather than say myself, I'll refer to the 17th monk who was the head of our school. When he was asked what is Buddhism, it's actually sometimes these simple questions are not easy because there's so much there. And he said, Buddhism is methods to relax in every moment here and now. And when you think about it a bit, it's actually quite profound. I mean, every moment, no matter what's happening, no matter what is going on around you, no matter what is happening in your personal life or with your family, your friends, or school, to always be completely relaxed and completely present, and from that point, to be able to help others. So I'd say the most important thing is that to recognize that everyone wants to be happy, and there are meditation methods to actually make us more happy, to then be able to benefit others.